And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off. As a quick introduction, my name is Keegan Cotton. I'm the Director of Customer Success for the Americas region and our APAC region here at Guesty. This is my favorite headshot I have, where it makes me look like a used car salesman. So I try to use it as often as possible in any professional setting. So it's a pleasure to meet everyone here. With me joining today, we're lucky enough to have Melanie Brown, the Director of Data Analytics from Key Data. Key Data, for those of you who are not familiar, is a very data-driven company that works with a lot of Guesty customers, other customers, and their own kind of partners to generate as much data forward-facing as possible. So we'll be hearing from Melanie about some kind of upcoming potential metrics and where we're seeing trends go heading into the second half of this year. And then to hear from a property manager themselves, we have Afonso Salcedo here, the co-founder of Living. And he's going to be kind of giving the PM side of things here. So we'll kind of have a balance between the data portion. I'll be kind of contributing here a little bit from the PMS standpoint, and then we'll be balanced out with Afonso as the property manager. So Melanie and Afonso, thank you again so much for joining today. We're very happy to have you here. Just a quick overview of the agenda here. I'm just going to start with a couple of opening words beyond the ones I've already spoken. I'm going to set the scene a little bit with what numbers we've been seeing across the board at the first half of 2022, and kind of understanding that we are now in a little bit of a kind of transitory phase of the year, both month-wise and trend-wise in what we're seeing. But just kind of setting the scene of what we've seen historically. Then we'll switch over to Melanie, who is going to be kind of following up on that recap of the first half of 2022, and then predicting what is still to come in the second half, as I mentioned. And then switching over to Afonso as well, who from the property management standpoint, will be doing exactly the same. So we'll kind of get a well-rounded understanding. And then lastly, of course, we'll jump into the panel discussion, where we'll have a mix of questions, both from the audience and ones that were submitted beforehand, that we'll walk through together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it with some opening slides here. So what I want to start here today is with a couple of figures that we actually got, not from our own data, but from our partners at Airbnb and Booking.com, just to kind of showing the return of international travel. As COVID restrictions have been lifted in certain regions, we've now seen a kind of much larger return to pre-pandemic levels. For reference here, Airbnb reported 3 times the number of international reservations, higher than Q1 in 2021 when compared to 2022. And Booking.com let us know that they're seeing this at 33% higher than Q4 2021. And still a little bit lower than 2019, so not quite back to normal, which kind of shows us that there is still a lot more potential ground to be gained. But this is where we were as of now. Continuing on here, just to give a kind of full global view, these are numbers that we saw in total for H1 2022. What you'll see here in the green bubbles are changes in reservation volume that were observed across all channels. And the blue bubbles is the average nightly rates that we've seen. Now, as you can see, it is positive across the board that we saw in H1 2022. This is a really great return, and this is all in comparison to H1 2019. When looking on a global scale, we wanted to be sure we were looking for another time period where everyone globally was kind of as close to normal as possible. Even in 2021, the APAC region still had very heavy restrictions. EMEA and US were bouncing back and forth. So we felt this was the best target comparison date that we had here. You'll see in the US, reservation volume up 58%, ANR 35%, EMEA up 20%, 25% from ANR, and Australia finally coming out of very restrictive lockdowns, a massive bounce back here. If any of our American users felt cooped up inside during the pandemic, I can only imagine how our Australian friends felt. So they very much bounced back here with 67% increase in reservation volume and a 94% increase in ANR. Now, That's being said, I don't want to say everything is rose tinted glasses and we're completely back to normal and everything is bounced back, because as I'm sure a lot of you may have felt, there is a good deal of uncertainty in the space right now, based on what we're starting to see just in June, July, and starting to look forward into August, which obviously Melanie will get a little bit more into. Some contributing factors that we're seeing here across the board: turbulence in the aviation industry between staff shortages, even recurring COVID outbreaks, US labor shortages, economic uncertainty, inflation, and of course, the supply chain issues that have been ongoing for quite some time here. So one last key data point that I wanted to point out here is that a similar trend that we've seen, that I think Afonso is going to talk to a little bit more here, is that there's a significant increase in mid to long-term stays that we're seeing, where guests are about 21% of total reservations per our data are greater than 28 stays, and 48% of those are 7+ stays. Now that's compared in 2019 to 13%. And this is across all of 2021 to contextualize this, so we get the full kind of annual scope of high seasons, low seasons, so on and so forth. So Afonso is going to give us a little more detail into what does that mean for property managers to see this increase across the board in kind of demand for longer term stays. Whether it be this kind of digital nomad persona where someone's looking to travel, but they're still working, but they're able to be remote, so they can stay somewhere a little bit longer on the weekends, do outings and work during the week. What does that actually translate to a property manager who's more attuned to the short-term model? So, but now without any further ado and without any more slides that I forgot about, we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Melanie here from Key Data. So Melanie, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here and hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Keegan.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's jump in. I'm the director of data and analytics at Key Data Dashboards, and my team tracks a lot of trends in the space. We do a lot of writing and research into what's happening. Obviously, tons of questions around what the future of travel looks like. So excited to kind of dive in and share some data with all of you today. First of all, just a quick intro to Key Data Dashboard. We collect data directly from property management systems. So we work with over 50 PMSs worldwide. We pull that data in on a super regular basis. So all the data I'm showing you today is from that direct from property manager data. With that in mind, you know, like Keegan was alluding to, there's so many geographic differences right now. And so our data does tend to skew towards, again, those professional property management companies with maybe larger homes in the more like leisure, so beach, mountain markets, and instead of the urban markets with a lot of like smaller units that are rented by hosts or RVOs. So just again, anytime you're looking at data, try to keep some of those biases in mind. But because we do pull data directly, we get a super rich insight into what's actually going on in these markets. So all of my charts today, except for the very last one, will look the same. So I'll just spend 30 seconds explaining how to read this. We're looking at Q3 and Q4 this year on the books as of about a week ago when I pulled the data for all the years. So we're comparing, for example, Q3 this year as of July 18th to Q3 last year as of July 18th, 2021. So it's pacing data. Anytime the dot is green, we're higher than last year. Anytime it's red, we're below last year. Again, we're seeing a ton of geographic variability right now. So I won't be able to highlight everywhere in a ton of detail. Make sure you're finding this data and understand it for your specific market. Right now, we're looking at our paid occupancy rate, which is the number of guest nights booked out of all nights. And again, it's really shifting by country. So for example, Canada's occupancy rate is on the rise for both of these quarters for the rest of the year, but still a little behind last year. Italy and Spain and some other European markets are seeing a lot of recovery and even growth from pre-pandemic, which has been a long time coming. So that's exciting. Mexico and the US are a slightly different story. Some markets that opened up really quickly after, you know, short-term closures at the very beginning of the pandemic. So their travel industries bounced back fervently last year. Everybody was ready to travel. And so because of that, our occupancy rates going into the second half of the year are still higher in a lot of cases than 2019, but lower than 2021, where there was just this huge demand for vacation rentals. So again, I wouldn't call it a downturn yet. We're just seeing kind of the end in some ways of pent-up demand, even though we're still ahead of where we were pre-pandemic. So in all of these markets, our occupancy rates are continuing to adjust to make sure you're monitoring that changing demand for your own destination and adjusting your prices accordingly. And even though occupancy is mixed, rates continue to increase. Obviously, Keegan mentioned inflation, prices for everything are increasing, and so we have to increase vacation rental prices accordingly. And those have just skyrocketed even more than inflation. So in the US and Mexico, despite kind of a slowdown in demand and occupancy, rates are still increasing. So for example, Q3 ADR in the US, that's your average daily rate or the average guest night or guest rent paid per night, is at $428 for Q3 currently, compared to $393 last year, increasing through Q4 as well. Mexico rates are slightly up for Q3, slightly down for Q4. And then European rates, you'll see a lot of red during 2019 and 2020 for European markets. Those are starting to bounce back and in most cases higher than they were pre-pandemic. So as rates increase, obviously, property managers have to cover the inflationary impacts to their cost of operating. But as demand settles, as people become a little more budget conscious due to inflation and lower salaries, or lower, those salaries don't go as far, make sure you're not outpricing your travelers. Make sure you're not just seeing everybody, increase 25% across the board. Be sure, again, you're finding nightly rents for your own market and your own product type. And make sure you're not pushing rates so high that you're, again, encouraging travelers not to book with you and book with your competitors instead. That's obviously a super delicate balance, which is why we always love to monitor RevPAR. It's your revenue per available rental night. And that will tell you if your rates and occupancy are balanced. So in a lot of cases, you can handle higher rates and slightly lower occupancy. It'll offset your bottom line and make sure, again, your bottom line is still growing and increasing. So again, we're still seeing mixed performance for the rest of the year. Recovery is continuing to surpass 2019 in a lot of cases everywhere, again, except for Mexico and the US, where RevPAR is slightly down for Q3 in both of those markets, and slightly lower in the US for Q4. So again, make sure you're paying attention to RevPAR to help you balance the changing rates and occupancy. One of the key things we're continuing to track is the average booking window, or the average time between a guest making a reservation and arriving. During the last couple of years, we really saw that booking window condense. Obviously, demand was high, but people seem to be somewhat cautious about booking a trip too far in advance, especially during 2020. We didn't know if more lockdowns were coming, if trips would have to be canceled. And so again, we really saw people booking closer to their stay length or to their arrival. So you'll see a lot of red on these charts. This year, though, those booking windows are beginning to expand again back to where they were in 2019 before the pandemic. So for Q3 on the book so far, Australia and Italy are longer than in 2019. So people are booking further in advance. North America is right on track. Again, we're seeing that return to normal in North America, and Spain is shorter. That's helpful for people to get back to that normal booking window so they know when to drop rates, how to plan, how to look at your occupancy for the coming months. So that can be encouraging. Again, make sure you understand your booking window to make sure you're adjusting your prices at the right time. And so you know when to expect those reservations to start coming in. For example, the Q4 booking window right now is really long. So it's too early to start panicking about December because most people haven't and won't have booked December yet, except for around the holidays. Finally, again, Keegan talked a little bit about this huge increase in reservations per property. We've seen the same thing. Here we're looking at year-to-date numbers. You'll notice a lot of these markets were well below 2019 and 2020 and 2021. It's back to increasing again. So booking activity is staying strong despite some of, especially in the US, some economic concerns. New reservations are finally higher than 2019 in Australia, Canada, Spain, and in the US. 2021, I think we were expecting some recovery in areas where we ended up not seeing it. So that was lower than even 2020 in Australia, Italy, and Spain. Again, this is all subject to change for the rest of the year, but thus far, overall, on average, we haven't seen a huge slowdown in reservations. One thing I like to encourage people to do is understand how your booking activity changes seasonally in your market. In a lot of places, if you're seeing fewer reservations now than you were in March or April, that's totally normal. People were planning their summer trips. Now they're taking their summer trips. So don't just look at, oh, reservations are down and start panicking. It may be similar to what was happening in 2019 pre-pandemic. So just some good things to keep in mind there. Okay, that was a lot of data for 6 different countries in 2 different quarters, so I know it's a lot. So just some key takeaways for you. Occupancy rates slightly behind 2021 in the US and Mexico, but recovering in Europe. Again, occupancy is that realized demand. So make sure you're adjusting your rates as occupancy and demand continue to change. With rates, the average nightly rate continues to increase. Make sure you're not pricing your properties too high and continuing to just implement those 20-25% year-over-year changes. In a lot of markets, though, those high ADRs are keeping your revenue high, especially in the US, where occupancy is decreasing. So use RevPAR as kind of that alert system that you need to make some adjustments. And then your booking windows, mostly back to a pre-pandemic normal. In a lot of ways, we really see that booking window start extending for the future months. It means people aren't making those reservations and maybe beginning to feel some of those economic impacts. So again, just make sure you're monitoring, especially your occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, and your booking window for the next few months with data for your own location. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much for kind of that overview across multiple regions. Like you said, it was a lot of data. We will be sharing this deck after, so in case you need to, re-scrub over the data points that Melanie provided there, we will have that for you, and that kind of wrap up slide at the end there. Now, I want to go ahead and turn things over to Afonso, who will give us a little more kind of a real life example of how to implement some of these suggestions that Melanie was kind of providing to you, as well as touching on the mid to long-term stay implementation that we mentioned briefly before. So Afonso, you want to go ahead and share your screen and take things over?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Afonso. I'm a co-founder of Living. We created the company in 2015. We started the first check-in and welcomed our first guests in April 23rd of 2015. I started the company with 2 of my best friends, Jose, that operates daily-to-daily operations with me, and Gustavo, that is an advisor and an investor in the company. Today, we manage over 150 properties. Hopefully, we'll project finishing around 180 properties. Something that I'm very proud to say, we're the only company in Portugal that has in the same account at Airbnb that manages more than 50 properties as we are super hosts. It's really hard to do so. So this is something that we are very proud to do. We manage most of our units around Porto, Matosinhos, Gaia and Freixo, so in the northern region of Porto, and we also have vacation rentals outside of Porto, 1 hour by car, and in the region also of the Algarve. So we work 3 different business areas, and we adapted, of course, after COVID. So we do short stay management, less than 28 nights. The mid-long stay, that is something very important now for us, as we really specialized during COVID, and it's a very important component in our company now. and the to invest part. So if you're an investor, you have a next budget to invest, we look for a property for you. Then the goal is, of course, for us to manage it and to give you profitability on that unit. So between our company, Living, and our own cleaning company, we have around 30 employees. So this is just a little bit to introduce a little bit about our company. And let's pass. So what are we talking about today, to give a little bit of the insight of what's going on in our company. So as I was saying, in 2020 and 2021, we completely shift our focus from short-term to mid-term. There were no tourists in Portugal, in Porto, and all around the world. So we had to change the gears. We had to adapt ourselves and really focus, understand the market, understand the needs, understand what we had to change in our business model. First of all, not to cut anyone in our company. And I'm very proud to say we didn't cut anyone during the pandemics, which was very good. And we really specialized in midterm. And I really believe we 100% know the market from top to bottom. And now it represents a big portion of our revenue, because we really believe that it will increase along the way our revenue and the profitability of our owners. So I will introduce a little bit about some graphics, some important information of comparison between 2019, 2020, and 2021, of course, also with 2022. And I'll talk for this year about the booking window, that it was already brought a little bit from Keegan and Melanie, the length comparing to 2019. And I'll give you the most fresh insight comparing July of 2019 with last year and this year. So taking that on, so we still didn't reach, as you can see, the average nightly rate from 2019 at 2021, but the average reservation keep rising, and we have 546 euros instead of 421 in 2019. So this gives us a little bit of insight that the average nightly rate is still not up, but guests are willing to pay a little bit more to come and visit us. So that is something that we've been targeting for sure in this higher season and preparing H2 also. This, for me, it was really interesting hearing Melanie and hearing about other markets, because our market is completely different. So we've been trying to crush last minute reservations, because as you can see, 60% of our reservations in 2019 were over 60 days in advance. So as Melanie said very well, it was very good to prepare our summer with a little bit of more stability. We could, in terms of operation, having our welcomers, our customer support, it was much easier to organize our lives. As you can see, we have so many reservations in 7 days or less, and 15 days or less, so and also in the next 30 days. So our window is so small to organize everyday operation that it is a big challenge for us, but it's exciting. It's a new model, it's a new thing, and we're adapting. We have a very good sales team that is on top of that. They're working like crazy to get last minute reservations. I even talked with Jose, my business partner. We were looking at the last week of July last week. We still have a lot of calendar that was opened. And when we closed it in the beginning of next week, in this week, all of the calendar was blocked with reservations. It was just crazy. We got a massive number of reservations during this weekend for this last week of July. So the market is completely changing. We're adapting to it. And hopefully, as you were saying, Melanie, it's going to start changing a little bit for us to get a little breathing space and start organizing things in another way. So Another thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the mid-long term, that is something that we changed. As you can see in the 2022 market, we were targeting, and this is our goal and something that we studied very well. If we change the way we operate, instead of doing the whole year of short stay, and change it for 2 blocks, and we target mid-long stay in the lower season and short stay in the mid-higher season, the same properties that in 2019 were doing X, they're doing X plus 15 to 25%. So that's absolutely massive. Our owners are winning 15 to 25% more money by doing the mid-long-term strategy in the lower season. So this gives us something of an insight. First, there's a massive demand. Second, there's a lot of money to be won over there. And the third part is a lot of our property owners have debt associated. So they have bank loans to be paid. And if on the lower season they get less income, they're going to be more stressed out. So if we give them more money, more stable income during the lower season, they're going to have a more relaxed time. Everyone is going to be happier. Everyone is winning more money. So it's a big comparison. If you see it here, our average was 4.65 nights per reservation. As you can see in the graph, we're for sure having bigger lengths here, where we target from April to October. That is our mid-high season. And then we're going to redo it from November to March, and so on as midterm and short term. This is our strategy as a company. Okay. So this for me is key, not also about the inflation. And as Melanie said, prices are higher than inflation. And comparing here, as you can see, on July 2019, we were doing about 108 of average nightly rate, and we're doing now an average of 138. So that's crazy bigger. So as you can see, even in the average reservation from 610 to 719, 720. So clients have more money now to spend. They're eager to spend it. And we see it directly in our bookings and our average reservation. So we have some clear strategies with the information that we have, of course, at this moment. Tomorrow we can have World War III, hopefully not, and we have to change all the dynamic of what we're doing. But as we're saying, max focus on last minute reservation. We are keep searching for new platforms for mid-long-term reservations to advertise our units. And we really advise people to put monthly discounts on short stay platforms. Focus on that, because there's people targeting over there, even on Airbnb or Booking. Even on higher seasons, we have lots of customers that are willing to pay a big price to do mid-long-term reservations, and having the support of a company like ours to give them a good service while they're, as Keegan was saying, they want to work 1 month or 2 months in another place, just take their head off their place where they're living, just have a new experience, and they are willing to pay a little bit more to have a company like ours doing the service. Adjustment for sure of the tariffs to be more flexible. Clients want to think that they can come today to a place, tomorrow to another, and the day after they want to go to another country. So they want to have that flexibility of changing the dynamic. If you are more flexible, you're going to get more reservations. And in final notes, and taking a little bit of the information that I took behind, if the length of the stays are higher, there's more money to be done with extra service. Focus on that. There's more tours you can sell them. There's more wineries they can visit. There's more service to be done, and you can win with those services. As I was saying, last minute reservations are key. You really should invest in good IT and a great staff, of course. Without them, we're nothing. The mid stays for lower seas. And as I was saying, if we increase 15 to 25%, exactly the same properties that have a track record of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, there's a lot of money and clients will be for sure happier. One thing I think it's really important is if you increase the quality of the service and the quality of the units that you manage, when there's crisis, there's still people traveling. People are going to search quality during those times. If you have more quality of units and properties that you manage, even in stressful times, really hard times, you're going to pass a less stressful time because you have quality of products that charge higher and you still get some income during those crises. So thank God that we stood a very clear path during our way of getting quality of properties. At this moment, we could have for sure 400, 500, 600 properties, but we prefer to get really good properties instead of just quantity. And just to give you a clear heads up on the power of the mid-long term is we had around 5% in 2019 of mid-long term reservations. Now it's 25%. And more of that is instead of having an average as we have of 10% of platform fees, the mid-long term reservations have an average of 1.3%. So more net money to be won by everyone, both property owners, and of course the property managers that are ourselves. Just to finish, as I don't like any of my headshots like Keegan and Melanie, I put it none. It's better just to put my name and my email if anyone needs to contact me. Okay. Available for sure for some questions. Cheers. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and let's dive into some of these questions here. I saw a number of requests coming through for geo-specific data. Particularly, I saw the UK, I saw France, I saw state level data for the US. Melanie, do you want to talk a little bit more to key data as a company overall and how people can kind of get in touch with you and what services key data provides?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you heard me say like 8 times, find this data for your market. And, Alfonso referenced this as well. It's different everywhere right now.
Absolutely.
Key data plugs again directly into your property management system, which is Guesty in this case. We provide you a lot of cool reporting on what's happening with your units and your overall inventory. So you can make sure you're tracking changes and managing correctly. We also show you market level data for the markets you're operating within. So you can compare your rates and occupancy and booking windows and everything else to other people in your market. I'll put our website in the comments or the Q&A or chat box for everybody. You can also reach me directly at melanie@keydata-dashboard.com. But I may relocate you. So it may be easier to just go through our website, see what you can learn, and then reach out from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie.
Sure.
And then, Alfonso, looks like you're addressing that question already. So I'll go ahead and while Alfonso's answering some of these questions in the chat.
I am, but if you want, just one thing, if there's any question that you would like me to answer here, and instead of just writing it down,
for
let
sure.
me know.
Absolutely. So Alfonso, I'll address you directly here with this question from the chat. You had mentioned part of your H2 strategy was exploring platforms that were more geared towards, or channels really, that were more geared towards mid to long-term stays.
Mm-hmm.
What channels have you identified at this point that are more geared towards that, outside of obviously being able to put monthly discounts in Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo? What are some other channels that you're now exploring?
Okay, so there are two things. One is to get platforms, let's say as Airbnb or Booking, and do the monthly discounts. Others are, we have platforms in Portugal that are very focused on long-term rentals and selling units. Okay, Over there, you can advise that you're doing 1 month to 1 year or higher. And for that, I'm going to give you an example how cheap it is. You can pay around 250 euros per month, and you can advertise 50 units over there. So that's very cheap per unit, and you get a massive number of contacts. So those are very, very two big. It's called Immo Virtual and Idealista. It's two companies over here. So we get lots of contacts. So from that, from all of our reservations in mid-long term, we have 95% of direct reservations getting from there. Okay, so that's massive. Other thing that we really believe people have to do is connect with companies. There's lots of companies that have people coming to work in the company, doing a formation for 3 months. There are people doing renovations in their houses, do some very good SEO and say, are you doing renovations in your house? Do you need a house for 1, 2, 3 months? Come stay with us. We have a property for you. So you have to be, you have to open your mind and think, why are people looking for houses for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months? Not only nomad digitals. Regarding those, and those are very particular because I really believe they're a very tight community. They talk to each other. There's a lot of word to mouth, as well as expats. They talk a lot with each other. So if you give them a good service, they're going to talk. We have a lot of returning or people passing word of mouth. So we're targeting those communities in Facebook groups and Instagram groups. So we're going everywhere we can to get the customers. Okay, so those are the platforms that you can connect for sure with mid-long term guests. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that. Now, kind of building off of this digital nomad persona that you just referenced to, and I kind of mentioned earlier, I want to kind of direct a question towards Melanie here, because we've spoken, like I said, about these kind of new and emerging travel trends, and what are these different use cases, and how do they actually come across in the data that we're seeing at the property manager level? What do you view as kind of ephemeral trends or permanent shifts in travel behaviors as a result of perhaps the pandemic or just the past 3 years? For whatever reason, we're now seeing very much a different style that seems permanently shifted from, let's say, 2019.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that one question. I'll kind of take it step by step. First of all, I mean, a couple trends I think will stay trends. Maybe those really long stays, we'll see what happens. At some point, people may want to go have like a real home base again, but maybe not. And then those last minute reservations, I think as things get back to normal, people will start booking at normal booking windows again. You know, we're seeing that in countries that recovered early, and their booking windows are getting back to normal. I think permanent shifts are going to be some of the consumer demands around vacation rentals. So expectations for amenities in your rental units, and then probably some more flexible cancellation policies. I think at this point, it'll be tough to go back to the super rigid cancellation policies, especially we had so many first-time vacation rental guests in the last couple of years. They're now used to those policies and may struggle if you start getting super strict on your cancellation policies again. You know, the overall goal of all of this is to make sure that vacation rentals aren't a trend, that people continue to choose vacation rentals over hotels. And a lot of that is providing value to your guest, making sure they're getting good value for the prices that you're charging, and that your amenities and personal touches exceed that of hotels as well.
Absolutely. I think that kind of 2 points that you touched on there that I hear a lot are kind of this increased expectation from guests. I always, if anyone's been to a webinar that I've hosted before, I think I always say this. I always talk about when Uber first came around. I remember getting into an Uber, and I was at an age where my phone was never charged, and so I would always beg, "Oh my gosh, do you please have a phone charger by chance? Could I trouble you, kind sir or kind madam, for this charger?" And if they had it, that was amazing. Nowadays, if I get an Uber and they don't have a charger, I'm like, what are you doing? Are you okay? Like this, you need to have a phone charger in your car. Otherwise, you're asking to get a low rating. Not that I would do so, but I mean, other people might do that. And then this flexibility in cancellation policy, I've seen it come up a lot, where when given the choice between two comparable listings, someone's always going to opt for that flexible cancellation policy. Alfonso, I'm curious to hear from your personal experience in the Portugal region, or just in the EMEA region in general, based on conversations you've had with kind of colleagues. What are you seeing in that space? Are you still seeing this kind of clinging to these more flexible cancellation policies? Are you seeing any other types of shifts?
Okay, so yes, we're seeing a shift. I think people are starting to be a little bit more willing to give 30 days in advance for a reservation, but more than that, from the feedback that we have from our sales, let's not jump still to more than 30 days because we had most of our reservations in 2019 were non-refundable. Okay, so we target big discounts for non-refundable, get the money up front. That was very good for us, have the cash flow on our side. Now to get a 7 days reservation in advance, that's very good. So, but at least we started targeting the 30 days in advance, and we're getting a lot of reservation that I believe people are having a little bit more trustworthy about the market, about maybe aviation. I don't know if they trust a lot about the aviation because there's a change on the dynamic of prices. Today it's €6 to go to Porto. You go tomorrow, it's 200. It's just crazy. We've been seeing that. At least the CTL of Porto is investing a lot of money to have very good partnerships with both Ryanair and EasyJet to try and get the prices always at the down price and not skyrocket. That is a very solid partnership that we have in our city. So that's it from our side. Okay.
Awesome. Now, kind of continuing on this trend of trends that we're talking about, Melanie, I want to kick it back to you to ask for property managers that are heading into this H2. You went through kind of the full spectrum of different metrics to really take into consideration here. Are there any in particular in that group that you would really recommend that a property manager who's kind of like not fully comfortable with the data or fully in the weeds on a day-to-day basis, that they really use as a North Star, kind of a key indicator to keep an eye on as we continue into this portion of the year?
Yeah, it's always a tough question to answer, right? I'm a data person, so you need a lot of it to make your decision. But we don't all have kind of a data background or access to a ton of it. Yeah, I mean, RevPAR is currently and should be like your go-to key performance indicator. Again, that's revenue per available rental. So it's just the average revenue you're making per night. That's the one that's going to tell you if you're making more money than you have been or less money. It will help you balance your nightly rates and occupancy as things continue to shift. So definitely keep an eye on your RevPAR. If it starts going down, that's something to change. And then if it is, going up further than it is for your competitive market, then you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. And then your booking window, again, you really need to know when to expect reservations to start coming in so you can keep prices high while demand is high. For a lot of the last couple of years, if you do have a last minute cancellation, there's a really good chance there's going to be a last minute reservation that fills that block. That may be changing for some people. So you're kind of like last minute stay pricing policies. How far in advance you drop rates or do you increase rates at the last minute? However you're handling that needs to be informed by your booking window. So again, that's RevPAR and then your average booking window, or the average number of days between a guest making a reservation and coming to the unit.
Awesome. Absolutely. Now, when kind of keeping an eye on those two tactics in terms of strategies that you can implement to kind of increase your RevPAR or use your knowledge of your booking window to increase your RevPAR. Afonso, what tips do you have for property managers who now want to kind of explore this hybrid model of short-term versus mid to long-term rentals, where maybe in the past, a low season for a property manager would just mean lower occupancy, but now it can actually mean a shift to mid to long-term stays where your occupancy stays consistent, but maybe your A&R drops a little bit in as a sacrifice for that. What do you think? Do you think that it's a situation where you can have a truly hybrid portfolio where all units can operate either as short-term or as mid to long-term? Or do you think you generate more revenue by splitting your portfolio purely between short-term rentals and strictly mid to long-term rentals?
Okay. So that's about 2 or 3 questions in the same one. I'll try to do my best to reply to that.
I'm working on simplifying my questions. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries, but those are good questions. I think we can compact them. So, first of all, in our strategy as a company, we don't want to have a split between, okay, this property is only for midterm and that is a block only for short term. Okay. Our goal is to try and have it as an hybrid. The thing is, between the lower season and the mid-high season. So, of course, there are property. I talked with you before about this. Of course, if I have a property in the best avenue of the city, that has a big surge for tourism 365 days per year. So I'm not going to put it in a midterm in the lower season, and my average nightly rate is going to drop massively because I'm going to lose money. But most of the properties between November and March in the region of Porto, if we put it on midterm during those times, the stable income, even if we lower the average nightly rate, and I really believe we have to split the average nightly rate between midterm and short term. Okay, let's not match it and do an average between both, because it's 2 different strategies. So we believe the average nightly rate has to be separated. Okay. Another thing is, now at this moment, or for the last year, new properties that arrive that still don't have decoration on it, we advise all of our owners, put a desk for guests to work there. It's really important when they get the photos to see, okay, I have a working space over there. I'm going to feel comfortable over there, working and spending 3 months over there. And I'm not going to have to work on the kitchen table or whatever. So if there's only that possibility, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go to the competition. And having that shift on the mindset of the decoration also is helping guests, owners getting more money because they're getting the reservations from the guests. Just to complete and having an answer replied by someone from the panel of questions is, they asked about handling the utility cap of the mid-long term, because what happened is our utilities included in the monthly revenue that we ask from guests. So replying to that and helping also with that, because it's important about the revenue that the owners get. Imagine if we get 1,000 euros per month for an apartment. If it's a 1-bedroom apartment, we're going to set a cap, so a maximum per month that the guests can spend on water, electricity, internet, TV of 150 euros. So we're going to market this apartment for 1,150 euros. At the end of the month, the owner is going to get the invoices. If he surpasses that amount, he has to pay the difference of the 150. If not, it's extra income for the owner. As we put around 20% over the max of the utilities that are spent, owners are getting, again, more money. So I really believe this is the best way of having the property owners happier because they're getting stable income. Where in 2019, I can give you an example. November was a month that owners could get 100 euros in 1 month, 150 euros in 1 month. Now they're winning 600, 700, 800, 900. It's a crazy difference. So that's it. I really believe this is the goal for the future. Okay.
Awesome. All right, Afonso, thank you for addressing those
You're
multiple
welcome.
questions there. It looks like we have a couple of questions here in the Q&A that we won't have time to get through. So I strongly encourage you to reach out to us individually, either on LinkedIn or via email, as we provided our contact information. But I wanted to end on one last question, just for both sides of the panel here. We touched on a number of these kind of hiccups that have come up in recent months here. The aviation industry, kind of a lot of mass cancellations of flights, so on and so forth. What tips would you give to property managers as these unprecedented times seem to get more and more precedented and more things start coming up? What are tips that you would give to property managers to kind of protect themselves against these types of hiccups or minimize their impact on their business overall?
You want to start, Melanie?
Sure, I can start. I'd say make sure your policies are like in place, that you know how to answer the questions that come up. I think especially with flight delays and cancellations happening everywhere, you're going to get more and more questions about early check-ins or late checkout or cancellations at the last minute. Make sure your guests know what they agreed to when they booked with you. Stand firm against that while also being like nice and reasonable as people have trip disruptions. But definitely it's a great time to take a look at your policies, make sure they make sense given the current travel climate, and then be prepared for those conversations as they happen.
Absolutely. Afonso?
Okay, so for those hiccups, I think having a clear strategy on what you're doing with a property that you're managing, for me, is key. Trying to see how the wind is coming and deciding today I'm doing midterm, tomorrow I'm doing short term, then I'm doing long term. So it's very, for me, important that you have a clear strategy. But at the same time, if tomorrow there's an hiccup, as you're saying, you're very fast doing the change on the strategy. And for that, as Melanie was saying, you have to be very clear on your policies. You have to be very flexible on your tariffs, and be prepared to take risks. This market is at all time changing. You have to be willing to, okay, I have this strategy today, tomorrow I have to shift it. Don't be scared doing it. Try, fail, do it again, change it again, but at least have it prepared to do it in the next day if your gut tells you to change it. That's my advice.
I think that's a really good note to end on here, is that, like I said, these unprecedented times are becoming precedented, but that doesn't mean that they're not unprecedented, meaning that there isn't really one solid playbook of how to address each of these things. So being agile and being willing to experiment is very important at this point, because you might be the one that cracks the code to figure out what is the right way to handle this particular situation here. So understanding how to keep track of your data, how to interpret that data, and how decisions that you're making would prospectively impact each data point to tell you if this was a good move or a bad move or a neutral move can be very, very important in terms of long-term impacts. So with that being said, we are 1 minute over our time here, so I want to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you, Melanie and Afonso, again for joining. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for participating. I know we do have a number of questions here that we didn't have a chance to get to. We're going to pass these to the panelists, and they'll be able to follow up with you directly. Or like I mentioned, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn or via email to address these concerns head on. But thank you, everyone, again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great H2. We're all pulling for it. So best of luck to everyone, and we'll see you next time.